the third thing that I believe is why it is so addictive. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Bulletproof for BJJ podcast. Why is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu so addictive? You got the bug. You tried a class. Your friend said, come along. It'll be easy. It'll be nice. First taste is free. And now you can't stop going to jiu-jitsu. You've shaped your life around it. You've changed your shifts. You've changed girlfriends. It doesn't matter. It's all about jiu-jitsu now. But why is this so? Why is rolling so important to us? Why will we give up family gatherings for open mats?
Sacrifice health.
Health.
For that one little taste.
It's got this cult. It compels us to do it. And we are going to break it down for you today. We are going to talk you through the major components as to why we get so hooked up on jiu-jitsu. We all have that phase, right? We recognize it in others, the froth. You would have seen it a bunch, Joey, wouldn't you?
Lived it, bruh.
Yeah, you
lived it. Yeah, I mean, we all see it. You see those people that are frothy. And the people that are frothy, I think, look at people like me now and like, how are you like not so frothy?
Yeah.
Like I remember talking to someone, I think a purple belt, that was like, we're watching a comp, we're watching Subversion or something, and she said to me like, how good's jiu-jitsu, eh? Like, she's like, what did she say? She said something like, you can't go a day without it or something. And I was like, I do that all the time. I can totally live without it for long stretches. But I was just like, we're at different stages of the journey.
You've just lost the love, Joey.
Yeah, that's right.
No, and so let's start with the physical, because there are some chemical reasons why it really gets you in. Now, part of the reason why we get, addicted to using our phones or junk food or whatever, a thing where you just can't stop doing it, is dopamine. We are dopamine monkeys. We live for it. And nothing really gives you a bigger dopamine, serotonin, and adrenal hit, like we're talking all the kind of amphetamine hormones in your body that get you so keyed up.
Feel-good chemicals.
Yeah, it's a mixture of the feel-good, but then also the stress hormones.
Yep.
And it's like, I almost died. Oh, I didn't die. Relief. I don't know if you've ever been skydiving or bungee jumping.
Have.
I went skydiving for my friend's 25th birthday, and I thought I was going to die every second.
Yeah.
Some people are like, oh, it's so
Resonates.
good.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to die, the whole time.
Yeah.
And I think some people feel like this when they get to jiu-jitsu. They're getting rinsed, they're getting tumbled, and then they don't die, and they're like, oh, what a relief. Oh, that was great.
Yeah.
Oh, I should probably do it again. And that's the thing. You are getting all these hormones coursing through your body, but you're also getting a workout. You're getting, people talk about, the runner's high. Man, the runner's high. That ain't nothing. That is just that's like a little sip of a light beer compared to the heroin that is BJJ, the thing that just gets you in and just rearranges your whole life. And it's hitting you on so many chemical levels. And not only do you feel good physically at the start, you're getting this reward. And that's what they talk about with addiction, is you get the stimulus, and then you get the reward, and you go, oh, how good was that? And you forget all the negative aspects, and you go, right, let's get that stimulus thing again. There might be some bad stuff in there, but you get this huge hormonal reward, and that's the thing that you remember.
Yeah, so this physicality piece, I reckon I got a couple of views on it, and I've mentioned, on other episodes before, but I think one of the huge ones, and we see this in the gym here, right? Not in jiu-jitsu, but just on the gym floor. People don't have much physical connection with other people.
Yes.
Right? Like you have it with your partner, right? Romantic connection, whatever. But unless you play a contact sport like rugby or jiu-jitsu or, some other combat sport, plenty of martial arts don't have a lot of touching, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember doing karate and shit as a kid. And yeah, it was never very little engagement with that actual physical engagement with another person. But judo has a lot, like wrestling, things where you're actually getting squeezed and exchanging and touching. And most people, right? I think there's a minority of people that sort of don't like physical touch. But I think the vast majority of humans, and I think inbuilt into our DNA and our whole being, is that touch is an essential part of life.
Definitely.
And you feel it, right? Like when someone, I don't know, when you sometimes when you get a good hug from somebody, you know, or like when you look at kids, like when kids are upset, they just want to be held, they want to come to you.
Yeah.
I think it's something we train out of ourselves a bit as adults, but we all like it. Now, in modern life, there's nowhere to really get it where it's not creepy, you know? And so you go to the office all day and you're doing your shit and you go the whole day and you don't touch no one.
Yeah.
But you go to jiu-jitsu class and you're actually getting hugged for like 60 minutes.
Forcefully hugged.
Yeah, like it's a really amplified, intensified hugging session.
Yeah.
And of course, you're not like consciously going like, oh, it's so nice to be hugged. But you finish this thing and you're like, that was so much fun.
Yeah.
And a lot of reasons, which we're going to look at. But I honestly think that like it would be cool to test it.
Definitely.
Where it would be like, I don't know, almost taking the techniques away and just having like a 60-minute kind of hugging exchange and seeing what happens to the brain chemicals.
Yeah. Well, no, they've actually, they have shown that a hug, I think, over 20 seconds does give like a serotonin release.
Yeah.
So it's definitely in there.
I think it's, I believe it's 7 seconds is the...
7 seconds, right.
Yeah, 7-second kiss, 7-second hug.
Right.
And I tested this with Misa.
Right.
Because I'm like, yeah, you know, we'll kiss, but, you know, not for 7 seconds. Like, oh,
like
see you later, but not for 7 seconds.
Yeah.
But I was like, let me stretch this one out.
Try this out.
And I was like, I actually felt like I crossed a little threshold where I'm like, oh, like it became less of a token thing, more of like, actually, this is a really nice feeling.
Yeah, and then the clothes came off and Leo, go in your pen.
Flying triangle in your pen. He's not a dog, bro.
You don't have a pen. You don't have a fenced off section for him. You know, like a velociraptor.
Will destroy the fence. This episode is brought to you by Parry Athletics, the exclusive apparel sponsor of the Bulletproof for BJJ podcast. We've been working with these guys for quite some time now. We absolutely love the company. We love their gear, both for training and also just looking slick off the mats. They got excellent no-gi wears, shorts, t-shirts, all that cool stuff. If you want to get yourself into some Parry clothes or you want to rock the Bulletproof for BJJ exclusive merch, you got to go through Parry, go to parryathletics.com and use the code Bulletproof20 to get 20% off your order. They ship internationally.
Yeah, it's funny because I have done a similar thing too, and it's interesting because you know, side note about steroids and autism is the sweet spot for key jiu-jitsu people. It's interesting how many people who are kind of on the spectrum or maybe just not good at expressing themselves emotionally, depending on what's going on, do gravitate towards jiu-jitsu. And they have shown that, you know how you were looking at cattle crushers a little while back, right, Joe?
Yeah.
So I'll speak to the farmer in you, sir. There was a particular behavioral scientist who she actually had a degree of autism, but she used to like to get in the cattle crush because her being squashed helped her feel relaxed.
Oh, wow.
And she went into research around weighted blankets and all this other stuff that kids that don't feel safe or they feel anxious, that the squeezing and the physical pressure after a certain amount of time, it actually helps them relax. Now, I don't know if this is like a survival mechanism or like certain surfers I've spoken to are like when you're getting held down by waves, you actually need to relax. Like if you fight it, you'll fatigue and then you'll use up all your oxygen and you'll struggle. But they said that they feel a really interesting calm. Even though they could die, the pressure of the wave smashing them, if they relax, there's a certain peacefulness that comes with that. But I mean, I think that I think that we get a little bit of that with strength training too, right? But I remember reading Move Your DNA, Katie Bowman, talking about the this is getting a little bit heady here, but the vector of compression on cells. Right.
And she was talking about how when you load your body up in different ways, like back squatting or walking barefoot, pressure is placed on the cells. And when that pressure is varied, it produces a different stimulus. And it's really good to get this variety of pressure.
Yeah.
You know, so like whatever, like mixing up your training or movement generally kind of does this.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking it's kind of, it seems like somehow linked to that, right? It's almost like they say that with kids. It's like they need that compression in order to kind of expel some of the tension that they build up throughout the day.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm like, how could that be any different for adults?
Yeah.
I think we're better at controlling all of that stuff.
Well, we've been trained to be that way, but it doesn't mean that that's natural.
That's right. Like somewhere in there, it's like you got pent up shit and you got no physical outlet for it.
Yeah.
And then, come to Squeeze Fest at 6:30.
Game on.
Yeah. Bro, you remember that story I told you about Pedro Sauer and coaching in Abu Dhabi, right?
Yes.
But quick synopsis for the listeners. Early days of jiu-jitsu in the United Arab Emirates. Was it Pedro Sauer or was it somebody else was coaching jiu-jitsu? There was the sheikh or one of the kind of elites there.
Royalty.
Yeah. They had a child, I think a son, who was on the spectrum and had never really engaged with the father. Like the kid, eye contact, direct conversation, these things weren't commonplace between them. And the kid really gravitated towards jiu-jitsu. And I think after a couple of years of trained jiu-jitsu, I think it was Pedro says had a really good relationship with this kid, found that through jiu-jitsu they could communicate and the kid could express themselves and fostered a beautiful thing there. And then after a couple of years of that, one night at dinner, the kid was able to look at the dad and engage in a conversation.
Wow.
Or it was something less profound than that, but it was the kid looked at his father and responded.
Yeah, wow.
And the father was like, holy fucking shit. And he's like, man, that's jiu-jitsu. That's what jiu-jitsu did for that child. And so that was a pivotal moment where it's okay, every kid's doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Yeah. But quite incredible, right? It was an unlock for communication or expression for that child.
Yeah, and that's amazing. That kind of leads me to a nice little segue to the next major point as to why jiu-jitsu is so addictive. And that's the thing about a drug. And now we're not just talking about, I'm addicted to sugar. Sugar is not heroin. People are not selling their car to get another hit of a candy bar. When people are I'm addicted to sugar, it's kind of bullshit. It rewires your brain. Right? Now, people will say, oh, yeah, sugar, this, that. The reason why I say this is part of humans, we are often trying to move away from pain and towards pleasure. This is a very basic concept. I'm not saying this is sum total. I'm not getting too hard on the psychology here, but we crave connection. Humans crave connection. We are herd animals, even though we can exist by ourselves. I went down a bit of a rabbit hole around loneliness because I was doing a bit of research around different things related to psychology and saying how much young people feel lonely because of social media. The way they engage with people is through social media, and we all do it, right? But you and I are pre-internet kids. The internet didn't exist when we were young, so there was a thing where you had to go and engage with people. That's not necessarily the case now. But here's the biggest problem with society, and you'd actually touched on it before, Joe, in one of our paid episodes, which is people are losing community. People are losing the ability to engage with each other. People feel not scared, but there's something holding people back with just being hey man, how are you? And you live in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
Your kids go to the same daycare, the same school, and they're just don't talk to him. He has a moustache.
Yeah.
Just
guy probably wants to suck my dick. Get away from me, creep.
It's so strange. No, it's just a jiu-jitsu tutorial. But here's let me just show you. It's a takedown. Here's the thing. Jiu-jitsu creates community on a level I have never seen before. Now, martial arts in general creates community, but jiu-jitsu does it more and more. And I think it comes off the back of that intimacy thing.
Yeah.
That even if you don't love somebody, they're not your best friend, you're smashing into each other at such a consistent basis. You're probably spending more time in physical contact with your training partners than you are with your family.
Yeah.
Right? Just because unless you do jiu-jitsu with your family, but good luck to you, that's cool. That really forces you to have some kind of a relationship, because even if you're not mates, you have to,
It's a community, yeah, nonetheless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think about what constitutes a community, right? And I think there's a few things within jiu-jitsu that it does to fulfill that. One is shared struggle.
Yes.
Right? Shared struggle.
Camaraderie.
Like we're going, the sessions are hard, the injuries suck. Like there's all that. There's also like this shared joy. Like we all love this thing and have a really good time doing it. But then there's a sense of purpose and contribution. And that sense of purpose and contribution maybe grows as you do it more. But it's like, oh, hey, can you run the warm up tonight? Or, hey, would you like to take the kids class? Or, hey, can you show us the tech? Whatever. Like even when the coach is like, hey, come and be my uke tonight.
Yeah.
You're like, oh shit. Like you have a role to play within this group, right? Yeah. And then the contribution piece is like, well, the other part I think is the hierarchy. Acknowledgement, yeah.
I think that
acknowledgement
in that.
Exactly. It's there. It's also like the pathway of like, I've got these milestones, these rites of passage, and so it's kind of very primal in that way because we used to have a lot of that shit.
A lot more hierarchies back in tribal days.
Yeah.
And you had to go through them to be a good part of the clan. But now it's like, I'm the assistant manager of HR for Officeworks.
That's right.
What is that?
And that's probably like when you talk to corporate
and look,
people.
not speaking down on that.
No, that's,
Shout out to everybody in HR.
Job. I've had that situation a couple of times recently where I've come to training with some water, but I haven't had any electrolytes, and I've finished training and I've had to go to a convenience shop and buy myself some kind of sports drink, usually a Gatorade. Cost me like $7. It's small and it really doesn't contain that much of the good stuff that I'm looking for, which are the electrolytes. Sodi, on the other hand, is my partner when it comes to hydration, and I'd simply just run out of it. And it sucks because I got to go buy expensive stuff that doesn't do anywhere near as good a job. I'm super stoked that we've been restocked with the Sodi, and now I can be properly hydrated when I train Jiu-Jitsu. This has always been an underexplored aspect of my training, and I'm so stoked that we now have these guys in place to support us and also the listeners of the show. So if you want to be hydrated on the mats so that you can perform at your best and have the best mental clarity while training, get yourself some Sodi. Go to sodi.com.au. That's SODII.com.au. Get yourself some delicious hydration salts and use the code bulletproof15 for 15% off. Go to sodi.com.au. Get yourself hydrated. But that's probably like that's interesting for us, right? As kind of entrepreneurs, there's no real hierarchy for what we do. But say, if you're in the corporate world, you have the hierarchy structure there too. And it's interesting when you talk with someone who's in corporate where they're like, oh yeah, I've got my review coming up and I'm hoping to get a pay. And you're like, wow, like you're on this full journey that I'm so oblivious to because I've just never experienced that. In any case, I think that JITS has all of those things built in. And so it's like I think they're very, on a humanity level, extremely fulfilling. We lack purpose. We lack like this thing about people not being able to socialize with their neighbors, right?
Yeah.
Is because they don't need to.
Yes.
Right? Community was born out of a necessity. Hey, we better look after each other because that community over there is going to come and rape and pillage this whole shit.
So we better stand together.
We better stand together. We got to know each other. We got to make sure we're training, keeping everyone sharp, good network. Like this is the basis of our existence. Whereas now, like at least here, that's not a thing. So it's like, I don't need to know you, pal.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking that, I think most people can't put together that because they don't fulfill that thing anymore, they also feel isolated and lonely.
Yeah, that's right. And it is interesting that there's so many things the society rewards us for because it supports the economic engine, which it's not actually good for us. Whereas what is so great about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is no matter what gym you train at, the path is pretty clear. You get in here, you show a degree of toughness, you learn these skills, and you stay a good human, within this process. And this process teaches you humility. It doesn't matter who the fuck you are out there. In here, you are your skills and your application. You got to demonstrate that. Now, obviously,
doesn't teach everyone humility, but I think generally you could say it. Yeah.
No, but I think even and I honestly I want to sit down with Gordon Ryan and talk to that guy. You know what I mean? Like I have never had a full conversation with Gordon Ryan. I've met him one time at the ADCC, and he was getting ready to fight Buchecha. So I was like, that was the extent. I'd like to talk to that guy because he's so smart and he's so good at jiu-jitsu. Why he behaves the way he does is like, I have no idea. So I don't want to actually judge him because I don't know what's going on in that guy's head. That guy could be the greatest community leader of all time. But maybe he isn't, and there's different reasons why. Whereas you might meet some people out there who you've never heard of them, and they're the nicest person you ever met. And they are a community leader. Like, I actually think Bernardo...
Ryan Walsh.
Yeah, well, I mean...
someone that comes to mind as just an outstanding human.
Great club.
All about the community and
everyone's
the people.
in there, all about his students, great coach, all of that. Well, I was going to say, actually, Bernardo Faria is one of the nicest guys of all time, is a beast of a competitor, and everybody's like, I love Bernardo. And he's, in some ways, he's quite daggy. He's not the coolest guy, but that he just owns who he is. He's very unapologetically himself, and BJJ Fanatics has just become this epic thing off the base of his will to do it and his ability to connect great champions with everyday people and their knowledge, So why I'm so passionate about BJJ, why I am addicted to BJJ is I have witnessed firsthand, I have felt the chemical rush, which got me in and got me frothy. I took on a new identity as part of this community. But there was something else that happened. This is the third thing that I believe is why it is so addictive, is the enforced mindfulness of the intensity of jiu-jitsu. You cannot think about anything else. When you got somebody sitting on your chest trying to cross-choke you, all you can think about is like, don't die, I got to get out of here. Like, you can't think about your bills. You can't think about anything. You can't think about getting a speeding ticket. There's nothing else in your mind in that moment other than this. And mindfulness, meditation, it's such a mess around. When you try and sit still...
So goddamn boring.
Oh, it's boring, but it's also just sitting still.
Except I did a little bit yesterday after I had that edible. I found it was quite effective.
Dude.
Sitting in the sauna.
Dude.
Mindful as...
Bro, you were up with the aliens with Joe Rogan is where you were. No, but what I'm saying is this. Like, even someone like... So... I've heard this mentioned by many people at many different levels in jiu-jitsu, but Hoyler Gracie actually said this in a seminar. And Hoyler said, look, man, I don't know who the champions are here. He's like, I don't stay up on it. He's like, the door is open. Anyone can walk in, anyone can walk out, but you're all here. And when you're here, you don't think about the world outside. He says it's like a shower for your mind. It just washes off all the bullshit from out there, and you're here. And that is part of the reason why we fall in love with jiu-jitsu, because we just feel this relief. And there is some really serious science that shows this actually makes you younger. That mindfulness and meditation makes you younger. So I'm just going to go real quick to something. There is a lady called Elizabeth Blackburn. She actually got the Nobel Prize for proving this shit. We have telomeres, which exist within our DNA, which basically, when our cells get stressed out and damaged, the telomeres get shorter. They're like these little caps on the end of our DNA. And basically,
I've heard them the analogy of like the little bit of plastic on the end of your shoelace,
right?
It stops it unraveling.
Yeah, and the shorter it gets, that leads ultimately to DNA breakdown.
Right.
And there's lots of stuff you can do. We were actually talking the other day about people getting older, Joe. Can you speak to? We talked about it yesterday.
Did we?
Seeing.
Was that you?
No, no, not me specifically. Even though I could speak to it. You're telling me a story about a young man who you remember being a boy, and then you see him and you're like, oh my God, he's an old man, 33-year-old.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was talking about, ran into some people that I grew up across the road from, and I saw the father and I was like, hey, been a long time. Like, it's probably been 25 years since I've seen this guy. And we're chatting, and then he's like, oh, you remember my son? And I was like, in my head, I'm like, no, I don't. And he's like, it's my son here. And he's this jacked dude, like big. I was like, damn, bro, the weights didn't miss you. And he was like, oh yeah, brother. And I was like, how old are you? And he's like 33, right?
33.
So 7 years younger than me. And I'm like, bro, you look like, I feel like you just look 10 years older than me in my head. Clearly on the juice, right?
Yeah.
Clearly just like has aged himself from this growth trajectory.
Yeah.
And whatever. Looked great, like body looked great, looked huge. But I was like, oh wow, he was a little boy that's why I couldn't remember him.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when you hit the juice and you pump heaps of fucking weights, you speed something up, right?
It does speed up the aging process. Same thing. If you do anything too much, you party too much, alcohol, that can age you. Now, we've talked a lot about how if you take jiu-jitsu too far, that can aid you in terms of damage. But if we talk about the mindfulness thing, the reason why Dr. Blackburn got the Nobel Prize was she proved not only do we have these telomeres, that you can lengthen them. And that mindfulness actually can repair your telomeres. There's an enzyme called telomerase. This is the thing that she proved with her co-founders, her co-researchers. She's got a book. You want to check it out? You don't believe me? It's called The Telomere Effect. Check it out. It's cool. But the enforced mindfulness of jiu-jitsu helps keep us younger on the inside.
How about that?
It's incredible. It's incredible. And I have found nothing else like jiu-jitsu to focus my mind and not get distracted. Because Joey will speak to this. I get distracted in a split second.
Oh, perish the thought.
Bruh. But when I do jiu-jitsu, I'm focused, man. I'm focused. How about you, Joe?
If you're training it, not coaching it. You coach.
Let me show you 146 techniques.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the mindfulness thing is like I'm about it. I'm like, yeah, mindfulness meditation, it's great. For me, it's very boring. It's not something I engage in, except for yesterday when I had that edible. But generally, I couldn't really give a. But I find that like a hack, right, is to do something that consumes all of your attention. And I think that this is maybe what we talk about, like flow states and whatnot. Like yesterday, at the moment when I was eating the edible in my garage, I was actually just doing a bit of woodwork. Oh. Just I had this idea to build a thing. I was like, I got like 40 minutes. I'm like, I'm just going to go do the thing. And so I'm cutting and sanding and doing shit. And I'm like, that was a beautiful 40 minutes in the garage. And it was extra beautiful because the edible came on as that was happening. but point being, when you're doing something, might be cooking, might be, whatever you like to do, that it kind of shuts everything else out. You
lose track of time.
Yeah. And it's because your whole shit's focused on one thing. I think what I find a bit sort of hard to reconcile about the idea of mindfulness meditation is that in a sense, it implies like a nothingness, right? Sure. Acknowledge and send away and I visualize like my head being empty, right?
Right.
But I can never get there.
Right.
Whereas you do something like jiu-jitsu and you're like, your head's not empty. It's just not crowded. It's all in on jiu-jitsu.
One thing.
Yeah. Everything else is gone. And, I'm thinking back to like us in the natural environment having saber-toothed tigers and a whole bunch of shit that wants to kill us.
Yes.
Being zen and calm and empty-minded was just not a thing. Like you need to be anxious, right? About what's out there.
Well, you need to be focused, right? Well, there's singular focus, which is kill the tiger. Okay, I missed with the spear. Run away from the tiger. Run away from the tiger. Climb. Like this, there can only be that one thing at that time.
But even that default thing of like where we have anxiety of like, oh, but what if I fuck that up? Or I don't know if I want to make that decision because, like I think that's important because that's the what's that noise behind the bush? That's the who's coming up behind me kind of thing, right?
Sure.
So yeah, I think having something like jiu-jitsu that allows you to just go to that singular focus, it's beautiful.
It's
like
amazing.
you feel the relief. You're like, it's part of like, why was that so fun? One of those layers is, well, you weren't thinking, your head wasn't crowded by all this other shit that's always bouncing around inside your head.
Yeah, it allows stillness. It doesn't necessarily have to be emptiness.
Yeah.
So, and I actually believe that people who do jiu-jitsu in a balanced way, I mean, anything can be taken to excess, right? You can turn anything into heroin. You can turn marathon running into heroin. Like, if you want to just do it till you wreck yourself, that's fine. But people who have a good relationship with jiu-jitsu, I find that they are happier people. And I actually think ultimately in the future, when there is more people doing jiu-jitsu than not, we will actually have a happier society. I believe that wholeheartedly. And this is the one addiction you should definitely get on board with and share with your friends.
Oh, boom, boom.
There it is. All right, folks. If you like this episode and you want other people to see it, like, follow, subscribe, and also give us a 5-star rating. We appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Boss.